How do you measure the weight of an empire? Is it in the tons of marble and travertine that built its cities, the gold and silver that fueled its armies? Or is it in the bloodlines of the few families who dared to grasp for a power so absolute it could only be given a name? A dynasty. For centuries, we have marveled at the legacy of imperial Rome, its laws, its roads, its monuments that still stand as silent stone witnesses. But these were not the creations of a monolithic state. They were the prizes, the projects, the very personal possessions of a handful of houses locked in a silent, brutal, and eternal struggle. This is not the story of emperors alone, but of the families that built them, that destroyed them, and that for a time became the empire itself. Our story begins not in a palace, but in the shadow of a murder. With the assassination of Julius Caesar, the old republic, a ghost for decades, finally breathed its last. In the power vacuum that followed, a young man named Octavian did not just seize power, he engineered a dynasty. He understood that to rule Rome, one must first master the family. He became Augustus, the revered one, and he built the Julio-Claudian line, the first and perhaps most infamous of the imperial dynasties. It was a house built on a brilliant, terrifying contradiction, the public facade of republican virtue, masking the private, ruthless calculus of blood. He adopted Tiberius, binding power to kinship, and from there, the line descended into a gilded cage of paranoia and poison. The cunning of Livia, the debauchery of Caligula, the artistic negligence of Nero. These were not merely flaws of character. They were the symptoms of a system where a single family held power too vast for any one man to bear, where the only threats came from within the walls of your own home. But no dynasty, however grand, is carved from eternal stone. The Julio-Claudians fell not to a foreign invader, but to their own reflection in the mirror. And from the chaos of the year of the four emperors, a new house arose, smelling not of old aristocratic blood, but of campfires and legionary steel. The Flavians. Vespasian, a practical, gruff soldier, understood a different truth. A dynasty is not built on lineage alone, but on concrete and spectacle. He gave Rome the Colosseum, a monument so colossal, so public, that its very presence on the skyline was a daily reminder of the family that built it. It was power made physical. His sons, Titus and Domitian, continued the work, one a beloved conqueror, the other a feared autocrat. The Flavian lesson was clear. A legacy can be built, stone by stone, and sometimes that is more enduring than a name. Then came the Golden Age, the age of the 5 good emperors, and among them a dynasty that perfected the art of succession without direct bloodline, the Nerva Antonines. This was a house built not on birth, but on choice. Each emperor selected the most capable man in the empire as his heir, adopting him as a son. It was a brilliant, fragile experiment. From the warrior philosopher Marcus Aurelius, whose meditations were composed not in a quiet library, but in the mud and blood of a frontier camp, to the tragic co-rule of Lucius Verus, this dynasty proved that a family could be a construct of merit. It was the empire's peak, a period of stability and wisdom that future generations would look back upon with a deep, aching nostalgia. For it proved that the greatest threat to a dynasty is not the lack of an heir, but the arrival of one. And that heir was Commodus, the son of the great philosopher king who preferred the blood-soaked sands of the gladiatorial arena to the sober halls of power. With him, the delicate machine of adoptive succession shattered. The son had inherited the throne, and in doing so revealed the fatal flaw in the dynastic principle. The empire was not a birthright, it was a burden. and when treated as a prize, it corrupted absolutely. His reign plunged the world into a darkness from which it would not fully emerge for a century. The crisis of the 3rd century was the empire's near-death experience, a period of fracture and chaos where emperors were made and unmade by the sword, their reigns measured in months. It was the ultimate proof that without a stable dynasty, there was no stable Rome.
The final act belongs to the house of Constantine. In the smoldering wreckage of the old world, a new dynasty sought to forge a new unity. And they did it not just with legions, but with an idea: a single God. Constantine's embrace of Christianity was more than a spiritual conversion. It was the ultimate political maneuver. He built a new capital, a new Rome, on the shores of the Bosphorus, a city that would bear his name for 1,000 years. He created a dynasty where the emperor was not just a ruler, but God's representative on earth, cloaking imperial power in divine sanction. It was the final evolution of the dynastic idea, a fusion of throne and altar that would shape the world for millennia to come. So, how do you measure the weight of an empire? You measure it in families, in the desperate ambition of the Julio-Claudians, the brutal pragmatism of the Flavians, the enlightened reason of the Antonines, and the divine gambit of Constantine's line. These dynasties were the engine of Rome. They were its greatest strength and its most profound weakness. They gifted the world unparalleled order and unimaginable terror. They built aqueducts and commissioned murders. They gave us laws and staged massacres. In the end, the story of these families is the story of power itself. It is a warning that no institution, no matter how grand, can survive the corrosive, all-consuming nature of a single bloodline's ambition. They built an empire that stretched from the misty highlands of Scotland to the sands of Syria. But they could not build a legacy that lasted. They are all gone now. Their palaces are dust. Their triumphs are forgotten. All that remains is the echo of their names and the chilling, timeless question they leave with us: what dynasties are we building today?